In the annals of Roman history, few stories are as bizarrely entertaining as the story between Agrippina and her son Nero. Their power struggle in the height of the Roman Empire led to comical heights when Emperor Nero decided his mother had to go. What followed was a series of spectacularly botched assassination attempts on his own mother that would leave the most incompetent hitman cringing. I did a video on Locusta that actually goes deeper into some of these characters like Agrippina and Nero. If you find Roman history interesting, especially this era of the Julian-Claudian dynasty, feel free to check it out, and once again, thank you so much for watching. Agrippina the Younger was a formidable person in Roman politics, and she was pretty pivotal in her son's rise to power. Her ambition and political insight were evident from the start. In 49 AD, she married her uncle Claudius and became empress. And she wasted zero time in securing her son's rise to power. She swiftly removed anyone who was a threat to her son's prospects. Her influence over Claudius was undeniable. Even Dio Cassius observed, as soon as Agrippina came to live in the palace, she gained complete control over Claudius. This allowed her to manipulate the emperor into actually adopting Nero and even favouring him over his own son Britannicus. She was kind of like the evil stepmother from Cinderella. Instead of though just torturing Cinderella, she killed Britannicus. As Nero ascended to the throne at the tender young age of 16, after Agrippina had successfully got rid of Claudius and Britannicus thanks to the help of Locusta, Agrippina initially really enjoyed having her son be emperor. She had new unprecedented power and full control over Nero at this stage. She managed both public and private affairs, even attending the Senate, though she was behind a curtain because nothing says subtle influence like maniacally watching from behind a drape like a Disney villain. I kind of like to picture her just like peeking from behind the drapes, just like, you know, like the you know the video game Tilts where they go like this the entire time. I don't know. Or like, you know, the Wizard of Oz, or like Wicked, and how the guy, like the wizard from the Wizard of Oz, just sits behind the big mechanical thing and tries to act all scary, kind of like that. However, how good things were for Agrippina at the beginning with full control over Nero, things very quickly started to shift and their relationship began to strain. Nero, perhaps annoyed with his mum's backseat driving over the empire, started to push back. The first cracks in their relationship appeared when Nero started an affair with Claudia Acti against Agrippina's wishes. As Nero grew more confident in his role as emperor, his desire for independence only intensified. Between 56 and 58 AD, Agrippina became increasingly critical of her son's decisions. Admittedly, her son's decisions were pretty terrible. They involved murdering his wife, murdering his other wife, murdering a bunch of other people, doing a lot of things to make the public really mad, spending taxpayers' money on really stupid things. So I'd say the decisions to be critical of were fair. Doesn't mean make Nero very happy. In response, Nero gradually stripped Agrippina of all her rights, titles, and even bodyguards, because nothing says I need space quite like leaving your mum defenseless in a time where assassination was more common than fruits. The situation very quickly turned creepy and bizarre, as according to Tacitus, Agrippina tried to start a sexual relationship with Nero in order to regain control of her son. Because I guess incest worked for her before, so I guess it might work for her again. If this is true, it takes the term helicopter parenting to disturbing new heights. Ultimately, Nero's quest for independence led to a deadly power struggle. The once incredibly close relationship between mother and son had turned to a deadly game of Roman chess, with each step bringing them closer to a fatal confrontation. Going back to old reliable, Emperor Nero's first choice for matricide was poison, as it's silent, discreet, and deadly. However, probably due to her history with Locusta and how often she had poisoned people to death, Agrippina had been popping antidotes like breath mints for years, basically making her immune to all kinds of poisons. Nero's attempts of trying to slip her a toxic cocktail were about as effective as trying to drown a fish. Frustrated by his mother's apparent invincibility, Emperor Nero hatched a new plan that would make Wile the Coyote proud. He rigged Agrippina's bedroom ceiling to collapse while she slept, because nothing says accident quite like having a ton of marble fall on your head while you sleep.
Hey Ryan. Hey Billy.
Alas, this plan also failed. We don't really have the details on why it failed though. Nero's creativity in his attempted matricides literally knew no bounds. He considered stabbing her, but that was too messy, you know. One can always picture Nero and all his advisors sitting around a table trying to discuss how they would assassinate his mother, brainstorming murder methods like some twisted version of a business team building exercise. How will we train a pack of lions to eat her? No, that's too obvious. What if we catapult her into the sun? In the end, they decided on the infamous collapsing boat scheme. Then all Nero would have to do is invite his mother to Baiae for a festival, hiding his murderous intention under a facade of affection. But first, to lay the groundwork for his plan, Emperor Nero had to convince the world, and of course his mother, that he actually wanted to patch things up. What else can we do as children, the emperor would say to his guests. Except listen to our parents, respect them, and accept their anger with courage. It is my duty as son to reassure my mother and calm her concerns about me. I only want to be on good terms with her again. Over and over again, he would repeat this to various people until it eventually made its way to Agrippina's ears. Agrippina was probably quite excited, thinking that her son actually wanted to patch things up and that she could eventually get her honours back and her titles and finally be recognised for her importance in Roman society. On March 18, just before the festival of Minerva, called the Quinquandriere, began. They don't really like to make their names easy, do they? The plan was very simple. Get Mum on boat sails out to sea, boat does its thing and collapses, Mum drowns, bada bing bada boom, Emperor Nero is free from his mother. What? Writing in the most loving terms, Emperor Nero had invited her to spend a day with her in Baiae before the festival. When she arrived, he came aboard the ship, hugged her warmly, and accompanied her to the villa, where she would disembark and get ready for the event for the festival tonight. Before leaving, he showed to another richly adorned ship, covered in vermilion and gold, underneath some trees nearby the villa, with a team of imperial sailors stationed at hand. Emperor Nero was well aware of his mother's weakness for this kind of display. She loved opulence and glory for its own sake as well as for the influence it had on other people around her. And this ship looked amazing. It outdid the ships that she even sailed on back when she was the wife of Claudius and the Empress of Rome. Getting ready for the event, she donned herself in her most expensive outfit and her jewels before she got ready to disembark on the new ship. But I imagine like her danger sense kicked in or like her sixth sense, because for whatever reason she chose not to take the boat. Instead she called on her servants who brought her her litter and they carried her all the way to the event instead of taking her new ship. When arriving at the party, Agrippina was welcomed by Nero as well as his close advisors and many of the other people at the party. She was treated with such kindness and was so welcomed there. She was even offered the spot next to Nero at the table, which is something she hadn't been offered in years, ever since she lost her standing with Nero. I imagine at the party they drank a lot, chatted a lot, listened to music, maybe laughed at the peasantry, I don't know, they were kind of rude people, so they may have been quite mean to people. But anywho, I imagine they had a great time at the party, drinking, eating, listening to music and chit-chatting, the whole 9 yards that people do at dinner parties. After the party, Emperor Nero walked her down to her ship where she was joined by Captain Assassination. I guess after a long night of Nero's charm as well as a lot of wine, Agrippina had no issue with going on the ship and all her maybe pre-notions of danger were no longer warning her. She was led to a canopy covered in purple silk with gold accents and embroidery, and she sat on like this cushioned long chair thing while they made her way back to her villa. Little did these three know that Nero's plan was already in motion and this was meant to be their last voyage. As Assassination piloted the ship away from the coastline, I imagine Agrippina was quite pleased with the night, even believing maybe she would receive some of her honours back that she had been stripped away from by Nero. For example, the honours that would normally be given to those who were the wife of one emperor and the mother of another. The whistle was followed by a frightening crashing sound as the canopy above Agrippina came tumbling down on top of them, crushing one of her attendants to death instantly and shocking her and her other attendant. This was Emperor Nero's first trap, as the canopy had been laced with lead, and it was designed that with the pull of a rope the entire canopy would come crushing down. One of the debris fell and landed on one of her attendants, crushing her to death instantly. The others fell on top of Agrippina as well as her other attendant, but luckily both survived this. Thankfully, Agrippina avoided the brunt of it, but she didn't have very long to realise what happened before she was in water. The ship had collapsed, leaving the entire crew as well as herself in the water with two bits of the ship separated. The boat had successfully collapsed, but thankfully for Agrippina, her couch had kind of worked like some imperial airbag and she was able to float on the water. Meanwhile, Agrippina's servant girl, who couldn't swim, started yelling out, help me, I'm the Empress!" Which, well, I imagine she probably thought would mean she gets saved. Instead, she got bludgeoned to death by oars. Not really what she thought probably would happen. Quickly realizing what was going on, Agrippina got off the couch and slowly swam away in the darkness until she eventually came across a conveniently placed fishing boat that took her back to shore. I mean, like, if I was her, I'd have been like, grab my gold, grab my jewelries, I'm, taking a couple of loyal servants and I'm going to live the rest of my life out in, Greece or something. Like, it's not like you can track her down by, like, carrier pigeon. Eventually she made it to land, where she found refuge with some friends who were not tied to any imperial plots against her. Agrippina, ever the politician, decided to play dumb in hopes of getting back on Emperor Nero's good side maybe, or just because, I don't know. She sent Nero a cheery message along the lines of, "Oh, what a disaster, what happened to your ship. It's such a sad thing that it fell. Thank you for your lovely gift. So glad that I'm alive. Are you glad that I'm alive, my dear son? Anyway, everything's fine over here. How are you?"
Why is their voice so high-pitched?
I don't know, that's what I thought she might sound like. "I'm so glad I'm alive. Everything's fine. How are you, my dear son that definitely did not try to kill me just then?" Nero, on the other hand, was anything but fine. He was thoroughly convinced that his evidently unkillable mother was definitely coming after his very killable soul. The failed attempt definitely left Nero in a pickle. Not only had he failed the assassination on his own mother, but now Agrippina definitely knew that Nero was trying to kill him, making it a lot harder to probably assassinate her in the future. Animosity between son and mother have reached new heights. After numerous failed attempts, Emperor Nero decided to shove out subtlety and go for a more obvious and cut and dry approach. But one piece had failed to fall into place yet. What would be the reason for killing the mother of the emperor? What could Nero do to justify her death to the people of Rome? An idea they fell upon was a terrifying crime that would justify murdering his own mother to the people of Rome. Because the people of Rome actually didn't take matricide and patricide very lightly. They considered it a very heinous and truly evil crime. And then, as if fate had planned everything out for them, there was a knock on the door, and apparently one of Agrippina's very own servants had come to deliver a message to Nero. Upon hearing this, the Emperor and Assassination began whispering to each other back and forth. The messenger was invited in and had barely a second to start saying his message before Nero walked towards him, holding a blade. He dropped the blade to the floor as it bounced across the tiles, and Assassination and Nero started shouting, "Treason! Murder! This man has been sent by Agrippina to assassinate the emperor." Agrippina herself has organised the death of Emperor Nero. Upon hearing this, the Praetorian guards rushed in to arrest the man, and with this, Assassination had the excuse he needed. He gathered a band of soldiers and sailors and made his way to Agrippina's villa. By order of the emperor himself, he was charged with assassinating the enemy of the state, whose villainous attempt to assassinate her own son had just been revealed. As Assassination and his men burst into Agrippina's room, she greeted them with a mixture of resignation and defiance. She took a few steps back and dramatically tore the front of her dress off in a final act of defiance. She knew her moment had come and she would bear it proudly. "Aim your swords here," she cried, pointing at her stomach. "Strike here, this wound gave birth to a monster." Without hesitation, her killers obliged. Nero's reaction to his mother's death was a cocktail of grief, relief, and guilt. He insisted on seeing his mother's corpse and bizarrely commented on how beautiful she was. For the rest of the night he sat in silence, occasionally jumping in fear. To cover up for the assassination, Nero and his associates made up a story of Agrippina's suicide after failing to assassinate her own son. The Senate and the people, perhaps relieved with losing their domineering empress, congratulated Nero on his loss, which is a bit odd, but maybe they were also just scared of Nero because he is kind of the guy who killed one wife, had the other wife killed, made Christians into candles, he wasn't really an easy person to have a serious conversation with. Nero's relentless attempts to murder his own mother, Agrippina the Younger, paint a pretty vivid picture of the unique and complicated family dynamics that plagued the Roman royal family. From poisoning attempts to collapsing ceilings, each failed attempt showed Nero's determination to end his own mother's life. It also showed Agrippina's remarkable resilience. I guess she was kind of like a cockroach or something, she just wouldn't die. It's kind of impressive. This twisted tale of matricide really does show how far some people are willing to go for complete and absolute power. I mean, it was the reason why Nero wanted to assassinate his own mother, and it was also the reason why Agrippina wouldn't leave Nero or wouldn't run away when she had the chance and she knew she was trying to be assassinated. Both of them were completely driven for the desire and the need for power. In the end, Nero's success in eliminating his own mother actually did have an outcome for his rest of his legacy. Afterwards, he was even harder to control for the Senate, and he made even more bizarre and unique choices. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video, and please like, comment, and subscribe if you can, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you!